Hi, you guys. Today, I really wanted to make a video about my mental health journey and everything that I have been through with my mental health and things that worked for me, some things that didn't work for me, and just kind of share my story in hopes that it could help you guys. I've really created this whole channel as a safe space for people who struggle with mental health and to raise awareness for mental health. So please subscribe if you feel like you resonate with anything that I'm going to say today. And yeah, so I just want to jump into it because it is a lot to unpack. This really is going to be like a condensed version of everything. So if you want to hear about something a little bit more specific in my story, I will definitely make a separate video. So if this seems kind of rushed through, it's just because I want to get straight into the point. I don't want this video to drag on and be super long. So, where I pinpoint my mental health really coming into play in my life and really starting to affect me was 16. And the reason I can kind of pinpoint when it started is because I had my son at 16. And I experienced really, really bad postpartum depression. And it was already a very trying time. I was 16, I had a baby. I wasn't in a good living situation per se. I was living with my mom and there was just a lot of issues there. I was in not a very toxic relationship with my son's father at the time. It just wasn't a good time in my life, which makes me really sad because I love my son. He's my pride and joy, but it was really hard. And now throw into the mix this depression. And I remember, I was having these crying spells. I was already a pretty introverted person, but I was definitely isolating. And I remember even my mom had noticed my depression just because of I had like this monotone voice and just like I just wasn't happy. Like people could like read it off of me. And that was a really, really hard time. So because I was struggling so much, I felt really alone. I didn't feel like I had a great support system in my family at the time. It was a really, really lonely time in my life, but I knew that I needed help. I knew the way I was feeling wasn't me. I needed help. And I was like, I was going to reach out for it. And that's when I had put myself in a psychiatric unit in the hospital for the very first time. Sorry. So I go to the psych unit, and that was my first experience with medication. As far as like antidepressants, mood stabilizers, anxiety medication, this was my first experience with any of those kinds of medications. So they put me on a medication. I stayed there for 3 days. Unfortunately, the medicine that they put me on it didn't work well for me. The side effects made me extremely angry. It wasn't working. So I took myself off the medication. Never do that. Never, ever, ever do that. But I did. At the time, so I'm taking myself off this medication and I'm in a relationship with someone who has substance abuse issues. So I start using substances because I was just not in a good place. So, this is just kind of how my life is going. When I do look back at it, it was such a dark time for me and I felt alone and it was just hard. It was hard. I'm still going to high school. I was working a part-time job at Starbucks. I had a baby. I was using substances. I'm in a toxic relationship, not in a good home environment. It was hard. Then, when my son was about 1.5 years, my brother, RIP, passed away. He passed away, and that was so difficult and still is so difficult. I mean, the pain I had in my heart and the pain I saw my parents going through, losing their child, and my sister, I have a sister as well. She's a year older than me, and then we had a brother who was older than us. And it was just hard. The pain that we all felt, it was just such a dark time. And that was my first experience with grief and with losing somebody. I had all four of my grandparents at that time. So to lose my brother was just extremely difficult. And that just threw me even more into a spiral with my substance use and my mental health issues. So things got worse after my brother had passed away. I ended up in an even more toxic living situation after that. And it just really came to a time where I was like, something's got to give. I got to get out of here. My dad had lived here in Florida with his wife. And I took my 2-year-old son and we moved here. So that was my attempt to, change our lives, be in a better environment, have more of support, and get clean off drugs. And thank God I moved to Florida. I mean, it wasn't all smooth sailing from the beginning, which I'll get into in a second, but I'm originally from New York, born and raised on Long Island, New York. And I just think if I stayed there, life just wouldn't have been good. So now I'm in Florida, and I have my dad and my stepmom, who are amazing. I love them. I live 2 seconds away from them now. They are my best friends. I talk to them every day, see them almost every day. They're great, and they're what I needed at that time. I really needed help with my son. Me and his father had broken up. He was still in New York. So now I'm seeing a new psychiatrist. I'm getting put on new meds. I was seeing a therapist, and she wasn't the best therapist, but I was trying to get the help I needed. I was going to some NA meetings I wasn't using. So, life was doing fairly okay. And then in that first year of moving to Florida, I got my GED because I had dropped out of high school once my brother passed away. So I got my GED, I got my license, I got enrolled in trade school and graduated. I mean, I didn't graduate trade school that year, but I started trade school that year and, got my nail tech license, got my esthetician license. It was great. I felt like I was in a great place. It was really good. So a little bit after that, my son's father passed away. And I just couldn't believe it because losing my brother was so hard. When I, got the news that my son's father passed away, because he was in New York at the time, I mean, I was heartbroken. We weren't together and we never really were in a healthy relationship. But at the end of the day, that was my son's father. It was horrible. It was horrible, and another just really, really dark time. So that kind of pushed me again into some more substance abuse issues. So thankfully, I have, like I said, my dad and my stepmom who really stepped in when they noticed I was having these issues and pushed me to go to rehab. So I go to rehab and I was finding out a lot about myself, why I had this, kind of social anxiety, why I couldn't make friends easily, why I kept turning to substances because, I was learning that I don't like discomfort. I don't like to feel uncomfortable. I don't like to feel insecure. I don't like to feel unloved. I don't like to feel not good enough. I have an extremely hard time being vulnerable. I never felt truly loved and protected by anybody in my life. And I covered those feelings with drugs, with food, with nicotine, all these things. So here I am learning that about myself, and that was actually a really great experience. So I did 30 days inpatient rehab, and then I get out of rehab, and again, smooth sailing for a while, on some medication, seeing a psychiatrist, seeing a therapist. I was doing outpatient, which if you guys know what that is, it's like you go 3 times a week, you do a group with a bunch of people who also have substance issues, you kind of talk, you go once a week and see your own one-on-one therapist, and they drug test you and all that stuff. So I'm doing that, good. For some reason, I fell down the rabbit hole again and started using substances again. So 4 months after leaving rehab the first time, I go back to rehab for the second time. And again, it was a really good experience because in rehab, you're getting therapy almost all day long. You're learning ways to cope. You're figuring yourself out. You have a sober mind. They're, giving you a psychiatrist. You're getting on good medication. If you are struggling with substances, there's help. There is help for substances, for mental health, but rehab was an amazing experience for me. And thankfully, that second time in rehab really did its thing, and I've been sober since, and it's been almost 3 years. So that was a saving grace. But it wasn't all smooth sailing even after that. So a little bit after leaving rehab, again, I'm really into NA. I'm working with a sponsor, seeing my doctors. I've found a really good therapist. I'm working. I'm doing everything I need to do. And things are getting so good that I think I don't need therapy anymore and I don't need medication anymore. So, and that was still going good for a little bit. And then I ended up getting into a relationship with someone I've known since I was 12. He ended up moving here. We're actually engaged now, and he's amazing, a huge help. And for me, for my son, he's just an amazing support, and I love him. So he moved to Florida. I ended up moving out of my parents' house, just like a couple houses away, because I love them and I need them too. And so here I am, super happy. I'm working a job I love that I went to school for. I'm with a person that I love that supports me and is kind and isn't toxic and doesn't have substance abuse issues. Taking really great care of my son. He now has his own room, because we shared a room since he was born to when he was, 7. So life, I felt like life couldn't be better. I couldn't. It was amazing. And I was so proud of myself. And here I am at 24 doing all these things that I've been yearning to do for years. But then a couple months after we got the place and things are going amazing, my son, my pride and joy, gets diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And having been through everything I've been through with grief and with addiction and with toxic family members and bad living situations and moving away from my hometown and all these things I had dealt with, my depression and my social anxiety, nothing prepared me for having my son not be 100% healthy. Now, I just want to say that I know type 1 is very manageable. Pediatric endocrinology has come a really long way, but you never want anything to be wrong with your child. So it was really, really hard for me to deal with this. I was always like, not that he's not perfect, but you have to remember, I have mental health issues. So in that moment, I'm like, wow, he was always the one thing that was like, yes, you are perfect. I did this. I made you. I love you. I've taken care of you. You're perfect. And, not that he wasn't perfect anymore, but now it's like, okay, we're going to have to deal with this disease that needs 4 to 6 insulin injections a day. We have to totally change your diet. It flipped my world upside down overnight. So shortly after my son was diagnosed, I started having panic attacks. And that has been something I've been dealing with for about 1.5 years now, is my panic disorder. And it is extremely difficult, extremely difficult. And I remember my first panic attack, and in my mind now, I register that panic attack as a near-death experience. I literally thought I was dying. I mean, every panic attack I have, I convinced myself that I'm dying. But that one, I was like, I really thought I was taking my last breath. So super scary. And now I'm having them on a reoccurring basis. So then I go back to the doctor, back to finding a psychiatrist, get on some meds that, they weren't really helping. I was still dealing with this panic disorder. And it was just so hard trying to take care of my son and work. And now I have this panic disorder. It was really, really hard. I didn't trust myself driving in the car. I actually stopped working because of my panic disorder. It was just so, so bad. But then in November, I decided that I needed to go again to the psychiatric unit in the hospital because I needed help. And that is the main part of anything that I want to say on this channel, is ask for help. There's always going to be someone to listen. And I promise you that. I truly, from my heart, I promise you that. Because from someone who felt so alone at one point in their life and felt like they had nowhere to go. And I've dealt with mean doctors, and I've dealt with therapists who've said crappy things. Like, I've dealt with all of that, but I promise you, never stop asking for help. Like, I just want to get that message out there. So I go back to the psychiatric unit. I finally get on some medication that helped me. I've actually switched from that medication now. Right now, I am on the best medication that I've been on, at the best dose. As far as depression, like, my depression is pretty in check. My panic disorder is still very prevalent in my life. I still get like 1 to 2 panic attacks a week, unfortunately. And I'm working with a therapist, and we're trying to just kind of get down to the core of what's causing them. But obviously, I've been through a lot in life, and something my therapist always tells me is the pot can only be on the water for so long till it starts boiling. Excuse me. And I really think my son getting diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, that was the boiling point. I'd been through so much in my life, but I just couldn't handle it. And also, you have to remember, I had years of substance abuse that I'm sure changed some of the chemistry in my brain. And, so it was just really hard. But I just want to say that I know medication is not for everybody. I personally feel like medication helps me so much. I don't want to say it's been an easy road with medication. It has not. It's taken a lot of trial and error to find the right medication and get to the right dosage. Again, if you are on medication, if it's not working, ask for help. If you need to put yourself in the psychiatric ward, if you need to go to the hospital, call your doctor, whatever, always ask for help. Sorry, I thought my fiance was going to come in here. And then talk therapy, I also feel like, is really, really helpful. Life is heavy. We all need someone to talk to, even if you're not dealing with panic disorder. Having somebody to talk to is so helpful. And if you don't have the means or the resources to find a therapist, I did make a YouTube short about a crisis text line. And you could text them if you're having some kind of mental health crisis. They are not a replacement for a therapist, but they are amazing. And I'll actually put that in the description box too, if you want the information to that as well. And, try to build a support system. And again, I want to say, I know it's hard because I've been in a place where I had nobody. But try whether, it's your family, your friends, if there's someone at work that you really trust, don't ever think you're alone. Don't ever think you're alone. Don't ever think you are not worthy of being happy, that you are not worthy of getting help and living a fulfilled life. I promise you that you are worth it and that there is help. I'm always here to talk to if you need someone to talk to. I know life is really, really difficult, but I really just wanted to make this video and kind of share my story because I am going to be posting a lot of content about mental health and mental health awareness. So I wanted to share this. Like I said, it was a really just like quick run through of everything that I've been through with my mental health. But if you want to hear about something specific, definitely let me know and I'll do a whole in-depth video about it. But thank you guys a lot. This is my first time filming a YouTube video. So if I was a little bit awkward, or I know I'm like super out of breath because I'm talking like a million miles an hour. But yeah, I just let me know if there's anything you guys want to know more about. And thank you so much for watching, and subscribe. Like I said, if you resonate with anything I've said, definitely subscribe. Bye.